To demonstrate REST APIs using the HTTP protocol, let's check out the BasicHttpServer project, which is a controller application. If you've ever used Spring Boot, it's serving a similar functionality, except this is using older Java packages instead of a nice framework. What this project does is it can accept two numbers and then it returns their sum. We have two files, BasicHttpServer example.java and adder.java. So in the example file, we've got a main class that you can run. What it does, it sets up an HTTP server, which is something we're importing by Sun Microsystems, the company that originally developed Java. This example application is set to listen to incoming requests on port 8500. Then we instantiate a new adder object. We create a server context and then start the server. So what creating the server context does, when any requests are made to this address, it will call the method handle in the adder object. An example of the address call is on line 19. Note the use of two query parameters that's indicated with the question mark in the URL and separated by an ampersand. Now let's check out the adder class. The adder class is implementing the HTTP handler interface that we've imported from Sun's HTTP server package. This makes us implement a handle method, which has a parameter of type HTTP exchange. Basically, we have to implement a way to handle the HTTP request that was made to our server. We put a try catch statement and we'll see what kind of HTTP request we've got. If it's a GET request, we're going to call our handle GET method with the request as a parameter to that method. In this sample application, we aren't handling any other method types such as POST. So if the request isn't a GET, then we're going to call the sendString method with a return body that just says unimplemented method and an HTTP response code of 501, which indicates not implemented to the client. If you're developing an application with other HTTP request types, then you should put additional if statements for those types and then call some other handling method. If for some reason we encounter some exception at any point inside the try block, then we're going to catch it, print the stack trace to our console, and then send a response with HTTP 500 to indicate an internal server error. Okay, next I'm going to cover the handle get method that we have. First, it extracts the URI from the request, and then gets the string that contains all the query parameters using the getQuery method. There's a corresponding method for getPath, which extracts the other part of the URI. We call a method called splitQuery, which I'll explain afterwards, that returns a mapping of query parameter key names to their values. After that, I assign those values to individual variables, and then finally carry out the business logic, which is to add the two numbers. Finally, I call the sendString method, which I'll talk about in detail at the very end of the video. I give the sendString method the original request, my response is a string, and the HTTP status code that I want to send, which is 200, meaning OK, I have a successful response. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about the splitQuery method. This is a utility method that takes the string containing all the query parameters and parses it out into key value pairs in a map. It splits each key value pair by the ampersand symbol, and then splits the key and the value by the equal sign. I'm also going to show these two methods, convert and getBody, that weren't included with this HTTP server sample code, but would be provided in a different file. Because post, put, and patch methods usually provide data using JSON request bodies instead of query parameters, then we can't use the splitQuery method to read a JSON body. Instead, we'll need to take the request body from the HTTP request and parse it into a string in a JSON format. These are just two slightly different ways to achieve the same result, a string in a JSON format. Convert accepts the input stream, which is the extracted request body, while getBody, which was just taken from Stack Overflow, it uses the request directly and does that extraction for you. So that resulting string is in a JSON format, and we could make use of the org.json package to convert it to a JSON object for easier manipulation, such as reading values for specific keys. Finally, let's cover the sendString method. This method is used to respond to a given request and is the end of the flow from receiving a request. So the HTTP status code and the length of the response body is written to the response header, and then the output stream of the request's corresponding response body is written to. Once you fire off that os.close method call, your request is closed off and the response is sent to the client. You won't be able to go back after. The flow of execution is completed here. So that's everything you'll need to know about the basic HTTP server demo.